Good morning and welcome to Rising. Happy Friday. We've got another great show for you today. I am here with Niall Stanage, not usually here on a Friday, but here nonetheless.
I was going to say, you're on a Friday. I got to speak to Amber Duke on a Wednesday. The whole world is shifting on its axis, but
Amber
here we
is
are.
Out there in the field somewhere, missing,
Yes.
but we will hunt her down and have her back for next Friday.
And are you happy to be sitting here working on a Friday morning, Robert? Idling?
I welcome another opportunity to address this great nation and our wonderful viewers.
The issues that face the nation.
Yeah, I am actually pretty excited about the things we're talking about today. It's a number of issues I've mentioned in other contexts on other programs throughout the week, so I am excited for it.
Absolutely. Now, we do have a lot coming up on Rising, including that the Wall Street Journal is reporting that there are preparations being made at the IRS, specifically to make it easier for them to go after left-leaning groups.
Plus, former National Security Advisor John Bolton has been indicted. We'll jump into all those details.
And President Trump has revealed he will be meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest. He's also set to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky later today at the White House. Now, sorry, it is now. I almost crept into your important words of wisdom. We could ventriloquize each other's op-eds. Robby, what is on your radar?
Indeed. Well, the ladies of The View think Republicans, particularly Republican men, are too afraid of them to come on the show. Seriously. Host Joy Behar made that case during a recent episode. Take a look.
I think that we should have more Republicans on the show, but they don't want to come on. They're scared of us. It's like Marjorie Taylor Greene says that she finds the Republican men afraid of powerful women. Well, that may be true of all the political persuasions. But if they would come on this show and they can explain to us what they're trying to do to this country.
Are Republican men afraid of powerful women, afraid to go on The View? I call BS on Joy Behar's claim. No, I do not think Republicans would refuse the opportunity to go on The View. In fact, I suspect that virtually every Republican commentator, pundit, or politician of even basic talent or media savvy would relish the opportunity to mix things up with Joy and Sunny and Whoopi and all the rest. Conservatives love arguing with liberals. Look at how much fun Scott Jennings is having on CNN. Look how much fun I'm having here on Rising. The fun never ends. That's because members of the GOP aren't looking for some safe space where their views are never challenged. Oh no. They aren't afraid of gladiatorial intellectual combat. Now look, I am definitely painting with a broad brush here. I'm sure there are some Republican political activists who wouldn't enjoy the specific format of The View or don't have enough confidence in themselves, but come on, you know I'm right that the vast majority would love a chance to explain their thinking to Joy. Get Ben Shapiro on there. Get Matt Walsh. Get Glenn Beck or Sean Hannity. Heck, get Scott Jennings. He'd be perfect. There are plenty of terrific ladies who would also get the job done as well. Get Rising's Amber Duke. She'd love it. I have her number. Ask if you want it. Now, why am I talking about all this? Well, for one thing, I think it's important to dispel the idea that the two sides of the political spectrum don't enjoy talking to each other. And I get why this notion endures. Americans are sharply divided on politics, and they strongly disagree about which set of ideas, left-wing ideas, right-wing ideas, some mix of the two, would be best for the country. Disagreement can be unpleasant for those who don't engage in it as a job or sport or full-time hobby. Certainly not fun to argue all the time. It's not fun to go through life being constantly challenged. And unfortunately, too much of the media mirrors the sharp partisan split. For a long time, we've had mainstream media and we have conservative media. With conservative media, you get an explicitly right-wing perspective that is usually very favorable to President Donald Trump, maybe with some token liberal perspective thrown in as an occasional foil. With mainstream media, you get faux neutrality that's actually very liberal, particularly on cultural issues where it's downright progressive left, and then some token Republican in name only who is actually a Trump-hating ex-member of the GOP. The View itself mimics this dynamic as the right-leaning member of the panel, Alyssa Farah Griffin, is a former White House staffer who's extremely opposed to Trump, which, by the way, is a perfectly valid opinion, but not one that represents the vast majority of conservatives. Most conservatives love Trump. Now, there are some exceptions, but over the course of my lifetime, it's become increasingly rare to find real debate on cable news. It's more about humoring the perspectives of the hosts and the perspective of the audience. Well, who's learning anything from that? The great thing, in my view, about the rise of new media, social media, YouTube, etc., is that these platforms have brought back real debate. Now you have people arguing about politics at great length on the internet, and these people represent not just some stale two-party duopoly, but a range of ideological perspectives, from socialism to libertarianism to MAGA populism to abundance democracy to everything in between. I'm proud that Rising, this show, which was ahead of the curve when it launched 7 years ago, has played a role in fostering these important debates and continues in that fine tradition today. And if Joy Behar wants to familiarize herself with what happy debate looks like, well, she's welcome to call me up for The View. I don't love New York City, and as I'm reading the polls for the mayoral race, I think I'm about to love it even less. But for you, Joy, I'd be happy to make the trip.
Robby Soave on The View. It's what the public want, what the people want, Robby.
Give the people what they want.
Exactly. So we were kidding because I messed up slightly in the intro and almost started reading that.
Yes.
But in fact, as I was listening to you, I could have read the vast majority of it and agreed with all of it, really, in terms of the need for more rigorous and authentic debate, the way that the room for that seems to have got narrowed on cable news. It does.
So narrow.
It does, very much so. It used to exist more so than it does now, and as you rightly pointed out, a lot of the time on both sides, the dissenting voice can be rather tokenistic or not in fact representative. I mean, you mentioned Alyssa Farah Griffin, but Fox News also has those people who I consider people who play Democrats on Fox News, which isn't real. They're not really indicative of a particular progressive school of thought. There are also issues, I know even some past commentators on this show would have argued that even on networks like MSNBC, what you hear is a kind of democratic leadership voice as opposed to, actual voices from a harder left kind of perspective often. So all of that is true, and I think it's a shame. I do think that we have genuine debates that are civil but emphatic and honest here, and I think that happens elsewhere in the digital space, but much less so on linear television.
Right, and we are free, you and I are freed because we're primarily journalists. I mean, we have ideological point of views. We are freed from just kind of defending what the Republican Party is doing or the Democratic Party is doing. We have no interest in that. The people really have no interest in that. That mode of commentary has gotten very, very stale.
It has.
Maybe that's what was wrong with because I know everybody maligns the kind of crossfire era as being shallow, although in some ways I think it is, again, it's superior to, again, just having a host and just having the same perspective represented.
Well, it is, except the problem that I have with the crossfire model is that it did get very talking points. Like it seemed to me like you just, and I don't mean the show talking points, I mean party talking points, where you actually would just bring people on and have somebody mouth Republican talking points and have someone mouth Democratic talking points. And that's not really a debate, and it's not very interesting for viewers.
And, Tucker Carlson was involved in the end of it, and I think you can see how that format obviously limited his huge potential as someone who can speak at great length in a way that is not just narrowly focused on what's good for the Republican Party. I think his detractors would say, some of his detractors are in the Republican Party. They wish he'd stop calling them out, but it was so limited by the format. And what YouTube and Substack and social media have allowed us to do is have these longer discussions and debates where you must get beyond talking points, because the talking points that you'd have prepared or a partisan operative would have prepared cannot fill the time. We have to go beyond it. I mean, I remember when I started doing Rising at the beginning, transitioning most from doing those kinds of hits on cable news, where like we have to get to at least 8 minutes. In our previous only YouTube format, we absolutely had to get 8 minutes. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I have 8 minutes worth of things to say. And you train to actually say something real, to get beyond just what you'd hear anywhere else. It's great.
And also to actually defend in debate your position rather than simply you shout your part and the other person shouts their part and then you're done.
Right, because you can defend any position for 10 seconds, but if I can't defend it for 8 minutes, maybe it was a weaker position than I thought.
Exactly.
How about that? All right, we had some agreement, but I'm sure we'll get to some non-agreement. Coming up next, federal grand jury has indicted John Bolton. We'll dive into those details. Stay with us.